Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this afternoon's webinar, Leading for Equity in the Real World. And this is an informational webinar on the Racial Equity Leadership Network, a program offered at the Southern Education Foundation. My name is Kenita Williams, and I am the Director of Leadership Development at SEF. We are thrilled that you have joined us today to learn about our innovative new fellowship model that SEF launched in 2017 that really focuses on building the capacity of district leaders to ensure that all students have access to the quality education that they deserve. Joining me on the call today are two of our current fellows. We have Dr. Carol Kelly, Superintendent of Oak Park Elementary School District 67 in Oak Park, Illinois, and Mr. Keith Simmons, Chief of Staff of Bibb County School District in Macon, Georgia. They will be sharing a little bit about their experiences as RELN Fellows thus far. So again, we're thankful that you have joined us, and I hope that you will leave today with a good sense of how the Racial Equity Leadership Network operates, as well as the myriad of benefits to joining the network. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and jump into our webinar. So I will begin by sharing a little bit more information about the Southern Education Foundation so you have an understanding of who we are. So founded in 1867 as the George Peabody Education Fund, the Southern Education Foundation is what we like to call a think action tank, and in a lot of ways a broker of information, and we're based in Atlanta, Georgia. We are unapologetically supportive of public education, and our mission is to advance creative solutions to ensure equity and excellence in education for low-income students and students of color in the South. At SEF, our vision is a world where every student, regardless of background, enjoys an education that propels them toward the opportunity-rich life that they deserve. A few quick other points about our work. As you can tell by our name, we obviously focus on the southern region of the United States, so we cover 15 states across the South. We work across the entire education continuum, starting with early learning all the way through higher education. And our work typically falls into three buckets. The first bucket being analysis and solutions, really taking a look at the data and the trends in education across our region to really understand what's going on and where we might want to focus our efforts. And then advocacy is our second bucket. That's using the data and trends that we've learned and our research, as well as partnering with others in space to use what we've learned to really work toward affecting change around the trends that we see. And then finally, leadership development, my portfolio of work, which is really supporting a cadre of innovators, thinkers, and leaders to become more effective change agents in the education space. And obviously, the Racial Equity Leadership Network falls into this bucket. So a little bit more, now that you know a little bit more about SEF, let's talk about the Racial Equity Leadership Network. So the RELN, as we call it, or the Racial Equity Leadership Network, is an 18-month cohort-style fellowship for executive leaders and school districts that are committed to advancing equity-centered solutions to remedy some of the historical disparities we see in student outcomes and achievement. Launched in 2017, the RELN was designed to really build the will, skill, and capacity of district leaders to lead with, one, an explicit racial equity lens, and authentically center race in discussions around access and opportunity, thereby helping to realize a compelling vision of education equity for every student. I'm then switching my slides. Each cohort of the Racial Equity Leadership Network will be comprised of up to 12 executive leaders from school districts, with a special emphasis on districts in the South. Over the 18-month experience, the Racial Equity Leadership Network fellows will attend 5 in-person, 2-day convenings focused on what we believe or call essential levers for equity-centered systems change and leadership transformation. Fellows are also asked to work in their districts to create what we're calling in-district design teams, and these are basically a work group of district colleagues or community members that have the influence and the capacity to support you as you work on a specific equity challenge that you're seeing in your district. Let's see. So I mentioned the essential levers of equity. On this slide, you will see some of the topics that our current fellows are working on. The first session or first lever would be leadership and why your courageous leadership is that first lever for change. We also have sessions on partnering with communities and families to advance the racial equity agenda, a session on leveraging policy to interrupt systemic inequities, and also just really one, diagnosing and designing new approaches. So having an understanding of the data and the systems in your district and how they might be contributing to inequities. And then that final session, after a 6-month of lull basically in the program, where fellows are given dedicated coaching and technical assistance to work on a specific equity challenge. Then they come back to do kind of reporting out, sharing of lessons, and graduate. So a little bit about the goals of the program. How will we know that this is successful? So at the end of the program, we expect that, one, leaders will have made some movement around the equity challenge that they want to work on. 2, that leaders are more apt at engaging and enlisting allies in addressing disparities in their system. So are you able to leverage your relationships to get support to advance the racial equity agenda? Also, are you able to leverage your role, authority, and positional power to influence education policy and practice in your district? And lastly, are you able to really advance equity-centered solutions that give rise to student well-being and deeper learning outcomes for all children? A little bit about what we feel are the program benefits, which are quite a few. I think first and foremost, we want to mention that the cost of the program, including travel and lodging, is completely underwritten by the Southern Education Foundation. So our fellows have access to these tools and resources really for essentially no cost. There are coaching and technical assistance that's offered around a specific equity challenge that you want to work on in your district. Another resource or benefit, I would say, would be this peer networking to be part of this broader learning community, and other exclusive networking opportunities. For example, just this recently, one of our fellows were able to participate in a national convening in Washington, D.C. around the 50th anniversary of the Kerner Commission. And one of our fellows was actually asked to be on a panel to speak with former Secretary of Education John King. So a lot of networking opportunities and be connected to the broader context of what's happening in the education landscape. And lastly, certainly not least, you also have the dedicated time and space to step away from your day-to-day demands and really be intentional about this focus on racial equity in your district. So now that you've gotten a pretty good snapshot of what the Racial Equity Leadership Network is and how it operates and some of the benefits, I think this is a good opportunity to turn it over to some of our fellows so we are able to hear directly from them on what they've been experiencing so far. So first, we will hear from Dr. Carol Kelly, and she will talk about herself, her district a little bit, her equity challenge that she wants to work on, and why she applied and what she's seen as a result of being in the fellowship. So Carol, please join us.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you so much for that introduction, Kenita. Also, thank you so much for having me here. My name is Dr. Carol Kelly, and I am Superintendent of Oak Park Elementary School District 97, which is a pre-K through 8 public school district located in Oak Park, Illinois, which sits right outside of Chicago. We are one of the western suburbs outside of Chicago. We have about 6,150 students right now and growing. And our composition of our student body is about 46% student of color and about 18% students that are economically disadvantaged. So when I first heard about this unique learning opportunity, I felt really hopeful that I would get in, given that my district was not, necessarily located in the South. This is my 6th year as a superintendent. I have served previously as superintendent in New Jersey, and prior to that, I served as a director of curriculum and instruction for a regional high school district in New Jersey, and have also served as a building administrator as well as elementary and middle school teacher. And one of the experiences that I had in New Jersey was belonging to a network of superintendents who were, as I am, deeply committed to addressing historical disparities in school systems, as well as realizing vision of educational equity for each and every student. And I really, when I moved to Illinois, I really missed that network. I really missed the opportunity of having a professional learning network. And when I attended the National AASA conference, and Kenita and other colleagues from SEF were talking about this opportunity, I knew that I had to apply, and I'm really excited that I did because of so many of the opportunities that Kenita highlighted not too long ago. My equity challenge that I really wanted to address really ties in with my district's vision, which is to create a positive learning environment for all students that is equitable, inclusive, and focused on the whole child. We use a series of metrics to help us see or ascertain whether or not we are getting closer to that vision. And one of our goals around equity is that we want every District 97 student to be a confident and persistent achiever. And a measure of student success for us is the percent of grade 3 students that are at or above grade level in reading at the end of their school year. And we measure that right now by PARCC data, which is the state's current standardized test that they administer every spring. And when we disaggregated our data and we looked at where student groups were in relationship to our excellent target, which is 90%, we saw that the one subgroup or demographic group that was really or farthest away from that excellent target were African American students. So my challenge is really around our student results, African American student results in the area of literacy. So I've written the challenge and I've begun to do work on it. And really, the work that I'm doing now that I am a fellow has changed from how I might have approached it before. I've always used inquiry, but we have been working on looking at our challenges and through the technical assistance or the professional learning sessions that we have when we are together. I have ascertained that the challenge that I'm addressing is a complex challenge, and given the complexity of the challenge, that the inquiry approach is the best way to go about it. So instead of just diving right into coming up with solutions, I began to address my challenge by conducting empathy interviews. And as Kenita talked about, I've been working with a design team, which is comprised of many members of my cabinet team, and we come together and they have helped me to not only organize the focus groups that I've conducted, but they've also helped me to craft the interview questions that I used, as well as synthesize the data. So some of the quick wins that I've had since, changing up some of my approaches have been many. First, I will say that I conducted focus groups for our African American 4th grade students because that equity challenge is based upon their results. I spoke to the students, I spoke to their families, I synthesized that data, and there are several members of our team who have designed what we've called safe to fail experiments. Those safe to fail experiments include, inviting students to sit on work teams with teachers. They include use of various technology tools. I have hosted, as a result of this training, events for our district partners where, you know, we have talked about how their work could help advance the equity challenge in our district. We have held community book studies with books that are helping the community to really dig into, like, what do we mean by culturally responsive teaching. So those are really just a few quick wins that I've experienced in the short amount of time that I've been in the cohort. I will say for me personally, what I desired mostly from being a member of the cohort is the stance of collaboration, being around other leaders who are deeply committed, as I am, to addressing historical disparities in our school systems. And I also feel that, as Hattie said in his recent research, that collective expertise really has the effect size of a 1.57. So, you know, together we have the potential of advancing student learning almost 4 school years by participating in this 18-month venture. So very much I highly recommend the opportunity. It very much will fit in with whatever context that you might be in. If you are a school system, as probably all of them are, that are really committed to helping each and every student learn, then I think that this would be a phenomenal opportunity for you.
Well, thank you so much, Carol. You know, I talk to you regularly, but it was just very heartening to hear how this has been a beneficial opportunity for you. I'm glad that you're getting so much from it. I did have a question, but you actually answered it, and it was, why would you encourage any leader to apply? And I think your last point about if you are committed to every student learning, then you have something to gain from this program.
Absolutely, and I think the collaboration, I mean, you know, I can't really speak highly enough about the opportunities for collaboration, not only when we are in session together, but also the network has provided various tools. We use Slack, GroupMe, and then there's just the basic email, text messages, but we are in contact with each other all the time, sharing with each other, and I really can't, you know, speak more highly than that.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. So we will, I think, now move on to our next speaker, which is, I'm going to move my slide, Keith Simmons, Chief of Staff of Bibb County School District. And so, Keith, I'll turn it over to you to share a little bit about your experience.
Thanks so much, Kenita. Good afternoon, everyone. And let me take a brief moment to say hi to Carol. Carol, how are you? Hope all is well. And I'll start by saying that I am, as Kenita indicated, I'm the Chief of Staff in an urban district located in the square middle of the state of Georgia here in the South. As the slide indicates, we have a little more than 24,000 students. We have, what you should know is that my district is surrounded by the operation of about 20 to 25 private schools in the same community. So we have some challenges with regards to inclusiveness, with regards to equity, as well as equality, as Carol mentioned earlier. I think in regards to the importance of having access to groups and programs such as RELN has proven to be more beneficial than I could ever have imagined. Having spent 22 years in public education between the states of Florida and Georgia, it has been this program that has allowed me to better understand both the narrative and dynamics as it relates to race relations, as it relates to racial disparities, as it relates to things that may not necessarily be intended, but because they are accepted, they are empowered. And that was part of the reason and the interest that I found with regards to wanting to be a fellow in this particular cohort. And I can positively say that, again, my experiences being able to work along individuals such as Kenita, such as Carol and other individuals in our cohort has really just been a blessing for me, both professionally and personally.
Thank you, Keith. If you had to, if someone came to you and said, why should I apply to this program, what would you tell them?
Well, Kenita, I think for starters, it's really about being able to garner acquisition and agency. In this regard, again, I experienced what it's like to be educated in public schools in the South. I've experienced what it's like to try and lead public schools with the narrative and the dynamics as it relates to racial disparities and inequalities and inequities. But I have never come across such an advocacy group that was willing to foremost acknowledge the situation, acknowledge the affair as it was, but most importantly, the willingness of RELN and SCF to build capacity, to build agency in the leaders. I've always appreciated the steps that has been taken to ensure that the members of our cohort are not only able to understand the complex issues around urban or public education, or just simply trying to ensure that there's an equitable lens in all of the districts that we lead, but also ensuring that we have the capacity as individuals and leaders to lead that work. I'll be honest with you, I was somewhat skeptical about trying to take on such a stance in my district until I learned about SEF and the RELN initiative, and I can honestly say that I'm more confident. I can honestly say that I'm more resourceful, and I can honestly say that we're beginning to move the needle and create an equity lens in Macon, Georgia, because of my partnership and participation in this fellowship.
Wow. Again, really just thrilled to hear that this has been such a beneficial opportunity for you all. And so thank you to both you, Keith, and Carol, for being willing to share your experience. And one, to share your experience, and then two, trusting us to embark on this journey with us. And we're really grateful to have you guys as fellows.
Thank you as well.
So, yeah, no problem. I'm glad we could be on this journey together. So before we close out, just wanted to let a little bit, give a little information about our application process. The application is open for Cohort 2, which will launch, kick off in July of 2018. But so right now we have on our website live for leaders that are interested to apply. In order to be eligible, you do have to be a C-level or executive level leader in your district. We do prefer Southern districts, but as just because that's our region. But obviously, if you have a compelling case and we feel that you could really benefit from these resources, with our superintendent, Dr. Kelly, that's on the call, then we would love for you to submit an application. And we, want to see that you have already demonstrated some commitment to reducing these racial disparities in your district. And we ask that anyone wanting to apply is willing to bring just their best thinking and commitment, and to be available and committed to attend fully and participate in all the convening, and also be willing to identify and garner the involvement of your in-district design team. So be willing to create a team of 5 to 7 members to work on this with you. And so that's generally it. Again, deadline is April 30th this year, and as always, if there are any questions or concerns, you can reach out directly to me, Kenita, and that's at kwilliams@southern-education.org. And that really brings us to the end of our webinar. Carol or Keith, do you have any closing thoughts? Otherwise, we can close it out.
I don't. Thank you for the opportunity for participating. And I, again, just highly encourage everyone to apply. It's a phenomenal professional experience.
And Kenita, I would like to echo the sentiments of Carol, and for those that are participating on the webinar, I highly encourage you to participate. Racial equity, or creating a lens for racial equity, is really a matter of complex thinking, but also awareness for what's taking place in the context in which you're working, and this is a great opportunity for you to be supported, for your capacity to be enhanced. I highly recommend it, and I encourage you to strongly consider applying or sharing the opportunity to apply with a neighboring district.
Yeah. And thank you again. And that just reminded me, I would be remiss if I did not say that SEF is building this opportunity with some national thought leaders, the National Equity Project, the Learning Policy Institute. So we really are trying to be thoughtful about creating a really meaningful and relevant experience for leaders that will, like you said, they'd be able to apply to their context and be able to really lead with an explicit racial equity lens. So I appreciate you all closing with that. And so without further ado, that brings us to the end of our webinar. Thank you to everyone that joined us.
Thank you.